So I needed a bench. More specifically, I needed a vice. Well, I had a vice, in fact I had 3 vices, but I didn't have anything to mount them on. You see, I had been using a workmate now to learn woodworking for over a year. It's lovely, it's the reason I was able to start, and it was also driving me completely insane. You see, if you've used a workmate, you know that if you want to clamp anything complex, it quickly turns into a wobbly mess. So I needed a bench, and I needed it soon. If I was faced with just one more week of this wobbly, unsecurable mess of a solution, I might just smash a wall in. And the garage is very unstable. It would not take that. And so I needed that bench. And there was something within me that just couldn't face screwing together a load of pine from B&Q. I wanted it to last. If I was going to make a bench, I wanted it to be substantial, to stand the test of time. So a quick, well-made workbench on a budget, with limited tools. Impossible? Perhaps. But then I had a brainwave. I had 3 oak sleepers from last summer, beasts of timber that had been lying forgotten in our garden, and now they would do. So sit back, strap in, get your favourite snacks. It's going to be a long one, but I think, like me, you'll enjoy every moment of it. So I set out on my journey, and the first thing I realised was that these things are incredibly heavy. Get someone to help you. Don't do what I did. And then the second thing I quickly realised is that they've been through a bandsaw, which means most of the edges are pretty wavy. And that's fine, but I wanted to use one of the edges as a reference for my circular saw. And I wanted fairly straight cuts, so I got out my scrub plane and got to work. And it took a long time, and I probably went over the top with it. But there's something just quite pleasing about straight cuts and smooth timber.
I've just made this cut here, and I've just done a vertical cut as well, just along the edge, so I can find my reference point on the other side. These 2 beams are going to become legs, right? I'm going to chop it just here at 1 meter. Let's get that out of the way. There's my awfully laid mark. Here's the mark. So I'm going to chop it across here, and this is going to become the top, and this is going to become 2 legs, all right? 200 by 100 legs, or 4 by 4s. Right, so that's the whole sleeper there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually half lap these to the top. I'm not going to full mortise them. I'm going to half lap them, just a bit like a framing joint. Not that I know enough about framing to call it that. So I've got my saw already set at 100 mils, which is the thickness of the top, just here. So I'm going to come across here, and I'm going to chop a series of cuts, all right, and then I'm just going to hammer them out and then clean them up with a chisel, and then I'll split the legs because it's quicker to do 2 legs at once. We can trim this all up in a bit, so let's get cracking.
So something to mention at this point is that I really don't know what I'm doing. I've seen a lot of videos on this stuff, I've read up on it, but I've never cut a joint like this before, so it was really the first time, and I was just making it up as I went along. And that just goes to show how wonderfully easy this is to do. There's not a whole lot of skill that you need before you attempt a joint like this. You can just kind of feel it out as you go. Now, whilst I can appreciate precision just as much as the next man, with hindsight, I was being way too careful here. The bench will dry out, it will shrink, it will change, it will warp, and these joints just don't need to be that flush. It doesn't matter that much if they're a couple of millimeters, hey, even a centimeter out. It's not going to change much.
So I'm a bit worried about this rotten wood here. When I was sawing across, quite a lot just flew out at the just had quite a lot of kickback from just some hot rot. I think that looks pretty bad, to be honest. I'm pretty sure there's good wood on either side of this, so that's good. Of course we're cutting straight down a crack, so it may be that, you know, we've lost a corner or so on these pieces. Should be a bit of a shame, really. But I think I'm going to continue on and we'll see what we get. And if this bench, rots itself away in 5 months' time, then, it's a learning experience, isn't it? So, yeah, we'll have a go.
So then I planed. Lots of planing here. Like, so much planing. Too much to show you. Did I mention I enjoy planing? I really enjoy planing.
As you can see here, we've got a couple of the legs planed up. They're looking really nice. I've cut the mortises on the ends of the sleeper though, which is a bit of a rookie mistake. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take 50mm off both. I'm just going to recut these mortises so that we don't have all this wet wood here and this kind of this end grain that's been sitting out for 4 months. So we're going to get rid of that. It's annoying, but hey, you learn. So that's going to take it down to 95 as well. So that's going to be a little bit shorter. It's a touch higher right now for a workbench. To be honest, it might even go down to 90 or 80. So this is actually a really nice one. It's got a little bit of a kind of where the water's gotten in, splits, cracks, whatever, what have you. But to be honest, it's gorgeous. Look at that grain. Look at that grain. Lovely, subtle oak grain. Then this one's by far and away the worst. But this sleeper originally had some heart rot from the tree when it arrived on the edge of the sleeper. It's all had to come out. So this is probably just kind of 3mm left of that. So I'm going to plane that down. You can see this massive check, this massive split through the sleeper with all this rot in there. I mean, as far as it goes, it's pretty good. Like, we've lost this side here and we've lost this corner here. But the rest of the sleeper is really solid. So I think it's still viable. So here's hoping. We're just going to put it together and see. We'll see how far we get today. So yeah, 6 hours in, third evening. Let's carry on. We're just going to plane this timber because I want to. It looks nice. And then we're going to break down the beams and let's do it.
So in an ideal world, you would go to a timber yard and select the sleepers that you wanted so that they didn't have any heart rot or anything in them, so that you got the best value for your money and the best wood to build a bench with. I did not do that. Due to lockdown and also due to me sleeping in, mostly the second one, these timbers were delivered to me and they arrived on my driveway. And then the delivery men left before I had a chance to inspect them. And so I ended up with a rotten sleeper. It wasn't too much trouble, but definitely an avoidable outcome if you plan it a little bit more. So here we're just chopping the notches for the side rails. The whole idea here is to just remove as much material with the circular saw as possible and then clean it up with the appropriate tool later. In this case I'm using a rusty hatchet, which is not appropriate at all, but you know, it was fun. So on reflection, I think I went overboard generally with the fit and finish with this bench. The biggest caveat to the build is that it's all green timber, which means that it's going to dry out, it's going to move, it's going to warp. And that's particularly true of red oak, that's going to shift like nobody's business. So you don't really need to be as exact as I'm being here. I trimmed it up, I enjoyed the process of getting that perfection, but it really isn't necessary. Getting some kind of hole there and pinning a joint in place, that was probably what I should have shot for. So really the only joint that I'm using in the whole build is this housing joint that I'm just using a circular saw, a hammer and a chisel to make. And the format that I'm going with is I'm using the square to cut each side of the housing joint, and then I just go ham in the middle with a series of cuts. And that just breaks up your waste enough that you can just hammer it out and clean up the rest with a chisel. The benefit to this method is that you get a really consistent depth off the circular saw. It's actually surprisingly accurate. And it's also really easy. It's pretty foolproof. Anyone can pick up a circular saw and have a go at this. And then we just rinse repeat 4 times, easy peasy. So here we are with the final fit up of the side frames. Instead of chopping out the mortises anymore, I'm instead going to just plane the rails until they fit. It's much easier than faffing around with a chisel. And I'm just trying to get the fit as snug as possible at this stage. Bear in mind, these timbers will probably shrink a little, so the tighter you can go now, the better. After I've popped them in, I'll cut them to length with a saw quickly, and just make sure they're really flush with the legs so that when it comes to popping those really long stretchers that go the length of the table, they'll just slide right in there. So with the final fit up of the side frames complete, it was then time to start drilling all of the holes I'd need to pin these joints in place. These aren't dowel joints because the dowels don't run in line with the grain, but neither are they drawbore mortise and tenon joints because I haven't mortised anything in. I suppose these would be best described as pinned housing joints. The dowels will definitely help pull the timbers together and it'll make it really rigid and strong. I also decided to screw these timbers together and then cover the screw up with a small piece of dowel. This wasn't the best choice, to be honest, because the screws I used just weren't heavy duty enough. If you're going to do this, and I think screwing them together is a fairly decent idea, I would pick up some hex head wood screw bolts, proper beefy things, rather than just the ordinary wood screws I was using, which I'm pretty sure all either snapped or sheared. But hey, you don't have to use screws at all, and I think the dowel joints, or rather the pinned housing joints, would have done fine on their own. And there we have it, 2 fully fleshed out side frames ready for the final assembly. There's not a whole lot left to do to turn this into a proper workbench, but I'm going to leave this here. This video is long enough as it is already. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. It means a huge deal to me. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Is this something you'd ever try? Is it something that you think is too complex? Drop a comment down below. I'd love to chat. And if you think I've earned it, smash that like button. It really helps out as well. In any case, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.